So this training is brought to you by togetHER. A little bit about togetHER. We are a feminist collective that launched 2 years ago with volunteers qualified in psychology, law, teaching, marketing, media, charity management, and more. Our mission? Simple: to end sexism and sexual violence. Let's be ambitious. Our values? First, we are inclusive. Our ambition is to gather all individuals, communities, experiences, and background. The more the merrier, isn't it? So we believe sexism and sexual violence affect us all, and we will all benefit from a society free from prejudice and discrimination. We have actually a lot of men with us tonight, which is new and fantastic. We are also non-violent. We foster a safe and kind space where the only things that get hurt are outdated stereotypes. Our actions are non-violent and we protect our members from violence. And finally, we are non-partisan. We remain independent and unaffiliated with any political party. Nous Toutes in France is our sister collective. They are a very successful collective which trained over 110,000 people on sexism and sexual violence in France. We're quite a new collective, so spread the word. It is the very first time we're delivering this training session on mental load. We want this training to reach as many people as possible. So if you enjoy the session, talk about us, share your thoughts on social media, and tag us. You can see here on the screen our detail on we have LinkedIn, Facebook, TikTok, Insta. We also have an email and a website as well. A little bit more about this training. It will last 1 hour. There is time dedicated to question at the end, but feel free also to make it a discussion, to interrupt throughout if you want to ask or say things. A little bit more about the content of our training session. First, we will see what is the domestic and mental load for you and beyond. Secondly, what is it? And we will define it. We will see why the division of labor is unequal. And finally, what solutions we can find. So grab a pen and paper, or let's be real, grab your phone if you want to take notes, but also because you will need it during the training. We will have some quizzes and you will need to scan the QR code and use your phone. So I think we're now ready to start our training on domestic and mental load. So let's start with the domestic and mental load for you and beyond. We will actually start with a little quiz. What domestic and mental load do you carry? It's a little quiz, no pressure, no right or wrong answer, just to assess where we are on it. Just an opportunity to see where we stand. So if you can take your phone and scan the QR code you see on the screen. And maybe if you want to put a thumb up in the chat, so I know you're there. And we can start the quiz. So here it is. So first, a family weekend is coming up. Who's handling the suitcase situation? Answer A. Everyone packs their own, but somehow you're the one who remembers the toothpaste, medication, and whether the guest house has bed sheet. Answer B. You've prepared everything, including your family's spare clothes, which are placed in a corner of your own suitcase. Answer C. You plan to pack everything with your family 2 hours before departure, and you close the shutters and turn off the gas while your partner loads the car. So you can just enter which one it is for you and go next. So we move to question 2. Monday evening, you return home. You step into the bathroom and spot a rogue pair of socks that aren't yours. What do you do? Answers A. You mention it to the people sharing your household during dinner. They put the socks in the laundry basket, pointing out it's almost full. Answer B. You pick them up, throw them in the laundry, and then, while you're at it, start mentally calculating when the next load needs to be done. Answer C. Socks. What socks? They weren't yours anyway. Question 3. At work. An important client dinner needs organizing. Who takes the charge? Answer A. You've checked everyone's food intolerance and allergy, booked the restaurant, sent the itinerary. One of your colleagues booked a cab for the group. Answer B, you ask your team to handle it, but surprise, they forgot. Your usual go-to restaurant is now fully booked and you're stress Googling last-minute dinner reservation near me while panic sweating. Answer C, you helped choose the restaurant and a colleague made the reservation. You also scooped out a few nearby bar just in case. Question 4. It's your lunch break. Finally, a moment to breathe. What do? Answer A. You receive a message from your partner. They remembered to do the shopping as you asked them to this morning. Answer B. You go buy a sandwich and take the opportunity to restock yogurt and laundry detergent. Back at the office, you call the speech therapist to reschedule your kid's appointment. Your partner was supposed to take the kid, but they had a last-minute meeting. Answer C. You actually eat your lunch. You scroll through Instagram. Maybe you follow the amazing post of our Together Against Sexism account. You chat with your colleagues, you go for a walk or attend your yoga class. In short, you take a moment just for yourself. And final question. Your best friend's birthday is coming up. Who is in charge of the celebration? Answer A. You know the time and place to meet, and you've put £20 in the communal pot. Answer B. You're organizing a surprise party, booking the restaurant, inviting all the friends, and stressing over the perfect present. In short, you're going out of your way to make sure the evening is perfect. Answer C. You ask your friend to remind you of the date. On the day you forgot to contribute to the fund, you promise to reimburse the organizer. Are you all done with the chat? So we can go back to, you've probably found out what your answer is. So basically, if you have mostly A's, you're the designated planner. Division of responsibilities is not fully equal. People help you, but only when you remind them. Do not hesitate to stress that taking responsibility for a task means handling a task from start to finish, not just waiting for instruction. Mostly B's. You are shouldering a lot. You seem to be carrying a heavy domestic and mental load. Managing responsibilities seems to be mainly your domain. If you don't do it, no one else will. If you live or work with good listeners, expressing this burden and your needs could begin to relieve you. You're not alone. Mostly C's, you've cracked the code. Your domestic and mental load seems fairly distributed among you, your partner, colleagues, and friends. Keep cultivating this balance. So maybe quickly now we could discuss a bit, are you surprised with your results? Do you have the impression that you carry a heavy domestic and mental load or not so much? Don't know if anyone wants to give their opinion or in the chat or just unmute themselves and share it with us.
I'll go. No, I'm not surprised that I was a B. Not surprised whatsoever, especially with the sock scenario.
Familiar. Well, hopefully by the end of this training, we'll get a few tips to help change that. Anyone else wants to contribute? Well, we can then move to another quiz, which time it's quiz on key facts and figures. So yeah, I'm just saying we have quite a lot of B's in the chat. So again, feel free to scan the QR code you see appearing here. And actually, it will be here as well. And this one will be a quiz to understand key facts and figures about mental load. Say maybe if you can put a thumb up in the chat when you're ready, and we will continue. You guys feel ready? Okay. So, question 1. According to you, how many hours per day women spend on doing unpaid work activities, including housework, caring for others, and volunteering in the UK? The numbers are in the UK. Is it 1 hour 37 minutes, 2 hour 37 minutes, or 3 hours 37 minutes? And the correct answer is 3 hours and 37 minutes. Most of you were right, indeed. In the UK, so women spend on average 3 hours and 37 minutes per day doing unpaid work activities, including housework, caring for others, and volunteering. Second question, what about men? How many hours per day men spend on doing unpaid work activities, including housework, caring for others, and volunteering in the UK? Is it 1 hour 43, 2 hours 43, or 3 hours 43? What do you think? And the correct answer actually is 2 hours 43. Men spend on average 2 hours and 43 minutes per day doing unpaid work activities, including housework, caring for others, and volunteering. So women spend 54 minutes a day, more than men, on unpaid work activities. That's nearly 7 hours a week more, essentially an entire extra work days. Third question. According to you, is it true or false that women take on even more of the load when they start a family? Seems to be quite unanimous. And absolutely, you are right. Women do take more of the load when they start a family. Research shows that mums are responsible for 12 out of 13 different aspects of childcare, more than dads, from bedtime and bath time to helping out with homework and buying clothes. Another true or false. Single dads do significantly more compared to partnered fathers. Do you think it's true or false? Again, you're all agreeing and you're right. Studies shows again that single parents, both mums and dads, carry the full domestic and mental load on their shoulders. So they do a lot more than partnered mums and dads. And last question, how many mums feel guilty about taking time out for themselves? Do you think it's 3 in 10, 10, 5 in 10, or 7 in 10? Here we have a mix of answer, and it is actually 7 in 10. 7 in 10 mums feel guilty about taking personal time, and 1 in 2 feel they don't even deserve it. So that was our little quiz to give us some numbers about mental load. We will now move to the second part of our training. And it's over to Christine.
Hello, everyone. So now we've done our quiz on the mental load, and we know a little bit about mental load and some of the facts and the figures behind some of that. We'll go on to a definition of domestic and mental load. There are 3 types of different loads, basically. So there's mental load, emotional load, and domestic load. The first one is mental load, which is also known as the worry work. So this is all of the thinking that's required to keep life running smoothly. It's invisible, it's endless, and it is very exhausting because it's non-stop. It's just always there in your brain. And there's 4 stages to mental load. There's anticipating needs, identifying options, deciding among those options, and monitoring the results. Some examples of mental load include scheduling team meetings, date nights, and family visits, remembering deadlines for bill payments and medical appointments, managing grocery lists and chore charts and other household schedules, and having to ask a colleague or a partner for help. These are all different types of mental load. The next load that I mentioned is emotional load. So this is the regulation of emotional expressions which are there to put other people at ease. Some examples of this type of load is, for example, if you're being the go-to person for comforting family and friends and colleagues in times of crisis, absorbing the stress and tension in your home or workplace to maintain the harmony and the peace, managing the emotions of an irritable partner or a difficult boss, and taking on the role of the fixer in conflicts. So making sure that everyone gets along and everything runs smoothly. The next type of load is domestic load. This is also known as the housework. So it's the physical work that's required to maintain a home, an office, or any other place that you can think of. Unlike mental and emotional load, this one is visible. So you can see it and you can point to it and you can say, look, I've done this. And examples of this type of load are cooking, cleaning, laundry, and grocery shopping, taking care of the children's schoolwork, meals, and daily routines, and home maintenance, bill payments, and errands. So all these different types of loads, mental, emotional, and domestic loads, they can happen at home, which is the most obvious place they can happen. They can happen at work, and they can happen with friends. So they can basically happen everywhere. Now we'll go on to do a quiz, just a little quiz, just to test a bit of your understanding on the different types of load. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at, the different statements here that we can see. I read them out to you, and then in the chat, or if you want to put your mic on and let us know which one you think it is, we'll match them up. So the first one is, you take your child to the doctor. Do you think it's mental, emotional, or domestic load? And I will give you a couple of seconds to put that in the chat. A lot of domestic loads. We've got all three, mental and domestic. So this first one is actually a domestic load. However, I think quite a few of them can maybe be seen as quite interchangeable. However, in the reason behind it is that this is basically a domestic task. So it's a task that is, you're scheduling a doctor's appointment for your child. So it's a domestic task. The next one is, you remember to book a restaurant for the Christmas dinner at work. Which one do you think that this one is? Mental. A lot of mental loads. And you're right, it is a mental load. So that one is a mental load. Next one, we have, you remind your partner that the laundry is done and it's their turn to hang it out. Which one do you think that this one is? Got domestic, emotional, mental. So this one is a mental load. So it's a mental load because it is known as the worry work. So when we think of the mental load, we always think back to the worry work. So worrying that the laundry, hasn't been put away or hasn't been done. The next one is, you remind your friends that it's the birthday of someone in the group. Which one do you think this is? I have mental, emotional. Emotional. So this one is emotional. Again, I feel, like I said earlier, a lot of them, it's quite hard to differentiate between. Some of them you might think they're mental because it involves the thinking, or you might think they're emotional. But this emotional, it's the emotional load because you are being that friend that is being the emotional regulator. So that's where this one comes into the emotional load. The next one is, you prepare the dinner. Which one is this? Yep, so you're all right, it's domestic. Obviously, it's visible, you can see it, and yeah, this is a domestic load. The last one is you smile and make cheerful small talk at work despite having a bad day. Which one do you think this one is? Yep, emotional. So that one is emotional load. So if you want to, in the chat, we can have a little discussion and let us know if any of these resonate with you, or if you can think of any examples from your own life. Feel free to turn your mic off if you want to have a discussion, or feel free to write in the chat. I'll have a sip of water. It's very hot today. So if no one has any questions, we'll go on to the next part of our training. Who carries the domestic and mental load? So everyone carries some level of domestic and mental load, but some people do carry far more than others. So our first category of people that carry the load more than others is women. So yes, let's not maintain the unnecessary suspense around this, but the biggest difference is based on gender. The domestic and mental load is gendered, and all studies show that women take on more of the load than men, which is highlighted in the quiz earlier. But women spend nearly an entire additional workday per week on unpaid household tasks when compared to men. We actually downplay the impact of the domestic and mental load on women. Alison Dominguez, she was the first woman to study mental load, and she found that even couples who consider themselves egalitarian will often fall into non-egalitarian household roles. Couples tend to recognise that society at large is unequal, but they'll downplay these inequalities in their own homes. Couples, including both women and men, will recognise that systematically women carry more of the load than men, but they'll tend to diminish this inequality in their own relationships. For example, yes, women do more housework in general, but not in our family. They'll also recognise that if globally women take on more, it is a gender issue, but tend to degender the issue in their own homes. And again, another example, yes, globally it is a gender issue, but in our home, it's just because she has more free time or enjoys ironing or some other reason. So we are refusing to see that domestic and mental load is a feminist issue. And why are we refusing to see that? Well, it's simply to avoid conflict. But the problem is that if we refuse to analyse the cause, we ignore the inequalities that continue to shape domestic life, and it becomes more complicated to change an unequal situation. The next category of people who take on more load are parents and mums. So they are responsible for kids who can't look after themselves. The gender gap widens when couples have children. So women have more responsibility than dads for 12 out of 13 different aspects of childcare, which can range from bedtime and bath time to helping out with homework and buying clothes. Heterosexual couples are also more affected by this unequal division of labour. Studies show that the same gender couples share household responsibilities more equally. Trans and gender non-binary parents report a similarly egalitarian division of labour. They do so by dividing up the tasks based on things like preference and work hours. And single parents, so with no partner to share the load, single mothers and fathers will take on everything alone, therefore taking on more of the load. And lastly, long-term couples. So the longer the relationship is, the less egalitarian it becomes. And over time, the gender roles become more traditional. So, for example, if at the start of the relationship, things seem to be more equal and spaced out and tasks were done equally, over time and over the years, they'll become more traditional and they will become more strained in the labor division. So what does not affect the division of labour? Well, the first thing that doesn't affect it is income level. So higher earning partners don't necessarily do less housework. and employment status. Full-time workers only do 3 hours less housework per week than those not in paid employment. So in short, if you're a woman and especially a mother, you are likely carrying more of the domestic and mental load than a man, regardless of your job or income. In theory, people want to change this, but in practice, it doesn't change. The idea that a man's job is to earn money and a woman's is to look after the home and family has declined by 39% since 1987. More and more women are in paid employment. 72% of British women actually now work. And yet over 60% of women say they do more than their fair share of the housework. So the next thing we'll go on to is to talk about, are women naturally better at carrying the domestic and mental load? Well, they're not. So it's a common misconception that women are naturally better at multitasking. This is false. Multitasking means performing several independent tasks within a short time. It actually turns out that science says men and women are equally bad at multitasking. Another misconception is that women are better at seeing the mess and dirt. Again, they are not. So an experiment was done with both men and women. In this experiment, Jane will represent the women and John will represent the men. So Jane and John have shown a clean and messy rooms, and they both agree on which room is clean, which is a little bit dusty, and which is a disaster zone. So this part of the experiment is to show that women and men do have the same criteria of what clean is and what it is not. So now let's show that messy room to a third person, and we'll say, firstly, that it belongs to Jane. So this third person agrees that the room is messy, just like John and Jane did, but they will conclude that Jane is messy and she's not very responsible and she should have planned her cleaning schedule much better. Then let's show that messy room to the same third person, but say it belongs to John. This person will still agree that the room is messy, and John, well, what about John? This part of the experiment shows that gender has a strong effect on housework perceptions, moral judgment, and social consequences. So basically, if a woman's room is dirty, the woman is held responsible for it and judged negatively. But if the man's room's dirty, there's no connection made between the room and the man. So another misconception is that women are better at organising, cleaning, and looking after people, but they're not. So why are women taking on more of the mental load? And the gender stereotypes, they usually tend to start early. So the division of different chores will follow gender stereotypes. Women are actually 5 times more likely to do cleaning than the men. The only housework task which men are primarily responsible for is car maintenance. Women are actually expected to do more, so naturally they become better at it. Women tend to have more flexible work arrangements. So with this, it's a vicious circle, really. As women do more housework, they want more flexibility at work. And as they have more flexibility at work, they do more housework. And again, it's into this vicious cycle. Weaponized incompetence can reinforce one person taking more of the mental load. So weaponized or strategic incompetence is when someone pretends that they're bad at a task so they don't have to do it. The hope is that someone else will take the load or will do that task. For example, if I'm mopping the floor and my partner comes in and, sees me doing it and he maybe takes over for me and it's not good, then I will continue to do the mopping of the floor. He's not going to do the mopping of the floor. So yeah, it's when if he pretends to be bad at mopping the floor, I'm just going to mop the floor. I know it's being done. I know how to do it. And yeah, he's obviously bad at the task, so he's not going to mop the floor. So now let's discuss and give some examples of anything that you can think of that is a mental or domestic burden in your home. So it can be leisure or work or exercise. And feel free to unmute yourself or we can have a discussion in the chat about this. As you could tell, mine was mopping the floor. Don't particularly like mopping the floor, but has to be done. Taking the bins out. Oh, that's a great one, actually. Taking the bins out is such a good one, yeah. Cooking, yeah. Cleaning the bathroom. I guess in terms of we was talking about the tasks that, you know, women tend to enjoy more. I don't enjoy cooking. I don't enjoy cooking, so I hate that. Looking after pets, yeah. Planning holidays and time together. Take care of over-the-counter, composter, taking out recycling, special bins, doing laundry, planning family activities. Yeah, these are all very, very good examples. So that is everything for me on my sections. So we're going to now move on to solutions, and that's going to be with Georgia. Thank you for listening to me.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Kristen. So moving on to what solutions can we find in relation to the domestic mental load? We will run through some ideas. So why do we all want to find solutions for a fairer division of labour? A more equal division of domestic and mental load benefits everyone, and here's why. Firstly, less stress for women. Studies show that being the household CEO without the paycheck leads to higher stress levels, especially for mothers. Research on young parents found that mothers experience more stress, exhaustion, and lower happiness levels than fathers, who actually report feeling happier while engaging in childcare. Sharing the load helps relieve this burden. Secondly, better careers for women. Women who are overburdened at home often struggle to put in extra hours at work, which contributes to the gender pay gap. Women dominate part-time work, receive fewer promotions, and often drop out of the workforce entirely. Fairer workload distribution is a key step towards workplace equality. Thirdly, healthier relationships. Couples who don't share the load equally argue about it 5 times per month on average. If one person does most of the household work, that number jumps to 8 arguments per month. Sharing responsibilities leads to fewer arguments. Fourthly, more durable relationships. Women who take on more housework report lower relationship satisfaction and are more likely to consider breaking up. Couples who share responsibilities equally tend to stay together longer. And finally, better sex. Yes, really. Studies show that an equal division of household work correlates with better and more frequent sex. Apparently, nothing kills the mood like resentment over unwashed dishes. Partners who communicate and share responsibilities build stronger emotional connections, which enhances intimacy. Sharing the mental load isn't just good for relationships, it's good for your sex life. So, moving on to what is a fair division of labour. A fair division of labour doesn't necessarily mean splitting everything 50-50. It means finding an arrangement that works for both people through open discussion and mutual agreement. Some couples prefer an egalitarian approach where all tasks are shared. Others opt for a specialised approach where one person handles certain tasks while the other focuses on different responsibilities. For example, one partner works while the other manages the home. Studies show that satisfaction in household work isn't about a perfect 50-50 split. It's about both partners feeling their arrangement is fair. The most important step is talking about it. Honest communication leads to better understanding and a more equitable dynamic. So here are some tips for success in achieving this. Firstly, start the conversation early. Don't wait until one of you is drowning in housework while the other is mysteriously busy watching TV. Secondly, check in regularly. Yes, like a work meeting, but for your home life. And thirdly, challenge gendered assumptions. Same-sex and non-binary couples tend to divide tasks based on logic, not outdated roles. Let's take notes from this. And then other ways to divide the load that you could consider, besides gender, are to base it on preferences, for example. Who enjoys certain tasks more? Some people like organising, others like cooking, etc. You could base it on time. who has more time due to work commitments? You could divide the load through this. Salary, who earns more and contributes more financially? Should they do less housework, for example, if they fit within this category? And then history. What's the history of the household and how have roles evolved? As another way that you could consider dividing the load. Okay. And then moving on to how to achieve a fair division of labour. So you can do this on a personal level through the following suggestions. So firstly, you could make tasks visible. And to do this, you would need to be specific and be explicit. Offer concrete examples of what the domestic and mental load looks or feels like in your life. You can explain that it's about sharing management, not just the chores themselves. And a tip from the clinical psychologist Lena Pearl recommends saying it like this: I feel uncomfortable delegating activities. It's a big job to be a manager. I'd rather we look at what needs to be done and decide together how to divide it up. Then I won't feel like I'm nagging everyone all the time. On a personal level, you can also plan together. So you could have weekly check-ins to discuss household priorities, meals, and upcoming events. You could define clear roles and assign ownership. This prevents mysterious cases of, I thought you were handling that. And you could automate where possible. So set up automatic bill payments, grocery deliveries, or recurring subscriptions to reduce repetitive tasks. And then some tips that we give in this area are to, one, use a task list. So platforms like Trello, Asana, or even a whiteboard could be used to ensure transparency in exactly what you're doing. And otherwise, you could keep a shared calendar. So Google Calendar, Outlook, for example, you can use for appointments, reminders, and responsibilities shared between you. And then thirdly, we would recommend teaching and trusting. So share skills. Make sure both partners know how to complete household tasks instead of relying on one person. Get the whole family involved. Children can learn responsibility by contributing age-appropriate tasks. Say no. Learn how to say no and set boundaries to prevent burnout and resentment. And let go of perfection. Trust that tasks can be done differently, but still effectively. And sharing the mental load requires giving up some control. And then finally, on a personal level, we would recommend celebrating the wins together. So acknowledge and celebrate improvements in how you're easing the domestic or mental load, because positive reinforcement encourages participation and builds a culture of teamwork, which is obviously very, very positive. And then just kind of zooming out to considering how to achieve a fair division of labour on a global level, governments and workplaces also have some work to do. And possible solutions that we've identified include, one, expanding paternity leave. It's proven that men with long paternity leave do more childcare later and are happier to spend time with their kids. More time with the baby equals more confidence in handling the baby. Another potential solution is investing in family policy, including affordable childcare and better parental leave options. Otherwise, granting a greater access to flexible working arrangements for both men and women would help everyone balance work and home life. And finally, another potential solution could be to introduce a statutory carer pay policy framework to support unpaid caregivers. Okay. So we've actually now reached, check the time. We've actually now reached the end of our training session. So we have some time for questions before we move on to sharing a little bit more information about how you might like to support our collective and get involved. So before we move on to that, does anybody have any questions about any of the content that we've covered today?
Yeah, can I ask a question, please?
Of course.
Okay, right. I don't have children, but I have been in several relationships where the partner has children. So I'm kind of opening it up to discussion. I don't feel that confident. So when it comes to sharing domestic load and even emotional load, do you think I've been unfair by shying away from that? Is it very much it has to be done on a couple by couple basis, or is that reasonable to think it would be the natural parent's responsibility to take more of that on? What are people's thoughts on that?
It's a
Did
great
it make any
question.
sense?
It did, yeah. Does anybody want to jump in with any thoughts on that?
I'd be happy to talk about this because I'm in a similar situation in a relationship where my husband has a child, and quite naturally, even though again I'm the woman and he's the man, thankfully we didn't fall into too much of a cliche where it's his daughter, so he does most of the work around her and the mental load, even though it's shared, I would say probably 90% on him and 10% on me, which feels nice. But then, days only last 24 hours. So I thought it was only shared to a certain extent for me to do maybe more grocery shopping, or then for me to, I don't know, like organize a bit of the household, because I thought, with communication, obviously, but I thought that if I let him, or if I asked him to look after his kid, like I said, most of the time, and on top of that, not help with the family life, I thought that was a bit unfair. That being said, it's an ongoing conversation always.
Yeah.
And he could do more on some things, I could do more on others. But to me, it has been feeling like a fair arrangement.
Okay, thanks.
So I'll just read. Jess in the chat is saying something quite similar. She, just so everyone sees it, she's saying, could you help balance the load by picking up other tasks within the household, or have these check-in meetings we talked about to see how involved they'd like to be?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm just quoting Jess in the chat here.
I think one thing that I know that as men we can fall a little bit into a trap of trying to do everything like perfectly right, and it's like, well, if it's slightly gone like, if things are going well but they've gone out of balance somewhere, and those check-ins are a really good point to just discuss how things are going and how people are feeling. So I think the key to all of this is just keep like educating yourself on it and checking in. And that's how we move forward. It's not going to be like one day we'll wake up and it's going to be perfect. But just that progress is the important thing, I think. So yeah, just regular check-ins, I think, really are, with any of these kind of like readdressing gender balances, just making sure we're not letting things move into a direction that's making people unhappy.
Again, someone in this chat is saying 100% agree with you. Don't be afraid to try it. Effort goes a long way, and being open to communication. And Phil is asking, does anyone have a story of wins they've had sharing the domestic load? Actually, Terry, just so I share with everyone, is saying, yes, I sat down my partners, and I moved in and explained to him it's important for him to show initiative when it comes to cleaning, because I kept on letting him know that tasks needed to be done around the flat. He would do them, but never do it without asking. When I told him, he acknowledged and made the changes. That's a great win story indeed.
Yeah, I was gonna say, so this is from my household, and what was really, I thought was really interesting in that exchange is that I asked for it and he made the changes, but I also made sure that I told him that I saw he was making the changes. Sort of like, I made sure that I understood that he was trying, and that was very important to me. so yeah, it was as Philip said, I think that communication is so important in a relationship. If you feel like you are overwhelmed by a mental load, if you don't communicate it to your partner, it can just sort of simmer and then explode all at once. So I think it's something that open communication and asking them, would you like me to do this? Can we do better? How can I do better? How can you do better? Is a really valid question, and especially if you have it in a very safe environment where you don't aim to have a fight. You're just asking, hey, are you happy with how this has been done? Can I do more? Do you want me to do more? And then express if you want them to do more. It's just it's yeah, I think it's the communication tools that everybody needs.
Mm.
I think one question that I've been thinking about when like leading up to this training is kind of like the opposite side of it. So sometimes I can be in a relationship and I feel like my partner wants to sort of contain all of that mental load. They're not sharing it with me, and they feel like I was cooking once and they came in and just started doing it, and that actually made me feel resentful because I was like, well, actually, I really like cooking, and I'd rather do it. And it's sort of like, how do you open? How would does anybody have any advice how they'd like to their partner to approach them and push them to share the mental load if they're feeling because of like societal expectations that they have to do these things? It's like, just share it with me. Do you know what I mean?
I had a similar experience with that. One of my previous partners was a very good cook, much better cooking than me. Not that I can't cook reasonably, so we would agree who was all right. We didn't live together, so on the days we were together, we'd agree who was going to cook on which days. And yet on one day, I was cooking the meal. She came in, started taking over. Probably not the right thing to do. I just walked out and left her to it. So she did notice, and she did sort of like say, "Oh yeah, sorry about that. You did want to cook that meal, didn't you?"
I would say if I'm all right to jump in, I think the best way to frame it is as letting them realize that it's you taking care of them as well. Do you know what I mean? Taking part of this mental load is just like, how about you relax, you get a glass of wine, you sit down, I'm going to do this, do you know what I mean, without being sort of aggressive, like, I'm doing this is my task, I'm doing this, don't interrupt. It's more like, no, don't worry, just you go relax, and I'm going to take charge of this. Do you know what I mean? It's something that I've struggled with for sure, because I was exactly like that. I felt like I needed to do it all. And as soon as I had a partner that came into my life and was like, how about you sit down and you get a glass of wine? How about you find something for us to watch? Is redirecting to a different, more sort of like relaxing, more self-centered task.
Yeah, good strategy.
Amazing. We have another message. So Jess said, I've often found when trying to initiate communication, it's been shot down, interrupted, or it feels like the other isn't listening or doesn't really want to have the communication. Having someone's attention and open space, i.e. no judgment, to talk is important. Also agree that sometimes people are oblivious and feel they need to do everything and may need a forced redirection and reassurance that you've got it in hand. Yeah, all really good points.
And I think as well, like, a lot of people it's always in the moment, isn't it? So, in the moment, if you're like really pent up, or you're cooking and you're just really stressed, and usually it's in those moments where sometimes that's when the conflict can occur because of the built-up, mental load or domestic loads or in whatever you're doing. And I think sometimes knowing when to talk and when to open up as well is also really important, because when you're in the heat of it and everything's super stressful, it's just not really it's not gonna maybe land very well, or it might not be taken in the right way. So I think also with everything else that obviously everyone said, just being sure and being able to speak kindly, and then in the moment maybe just speak super nicely, and then make sure that when you are discussing it in more detail, like that everyone's relaxed, they're relaxed and you're relaxed, and maybe even you're just on a walk and just walking, and everyone likes a nice walk. I love walking. I feel so relaxed when I'm having a nice, especially when the sun's nice. But yeah, just making sure that you've got that open space and you've got that relaxing environment and state of mind when you bring these things up, I think is super important too.
Yeah, do you think it's important to maybe sometimes have these discussions, not necessarily in the house, because, or domestic premise, whatever you're talking about, house, flat, apartment, just because it's kind of a loaded situation? Like you say, have the discussion in a more open environment where, you can't start pointing, but that's your pile, or, just look at this dust or whatever.
That's a really good point,
Okay.
actually. I think it does depend. Obviously, there's different types. So if we're talking, like a mental load that's work-based, usually if it's work-based,
Yeah.
you don't want to have to confront it at work, because it's where it started and it's where it stems from. So I think that's completely correct. I mean, but it also does depend on a lot of other factors, like, how you tend to deal with situations and how your partner tends to deal with situations. Everyone kind of deals with these kind of situations in different ways. But I think having the knowledge of how your partner prefers to deal with a situation, if they prefer to go out or if they prefer to have it inside, I think that matters. So I think just knowing from a personal standpoint would make the difference as well. So for example, in like you said about being at home, so if you, Marcus, you don't like bringing things up in the house, or your partner doesn't like bringing things up in the house, then obviously that would be the indication to maybe just go to a coffee shop, or go somewhere else, or do other things. Oops, sorry. Yeah, but I think that's a really good point. Yeah.
David is in the chat is also saying, I was just writing this, actually. I do feel that the space for this conversation needs to be created out of the running of things, and certainly not just when a stressful situation arrives.
Yeah, it's super important as well.
Agreed.
Maybe we could, because I see it 8, I'm conscious of the time for people who need to leave. So maybe we can conclude, and obviously we'll keep this space open after the conclusion for everyone who wants to continue the discussion.
Perfect. So yes, thanks everyone for being part of this important conversation and for dedicating your time to understanding and addressing the unfair division of domestic and mental load. And then in terms of upcoming training opportunities, just to let you know, if you found this session valuable, you could consider recommending it to others. And our next online training session is on being a proactive bystander to identify, address, and end sexism and sexual violence on Tuesday, the 20th of May at 7 p.m. You can book your free ticket on our website if you're interested in that. And you're very welcome to join our collective. We're always looking for new members. So if you are interested in getting involved, come and talk to us. We'd love to welcome you. And then finally, just a huge thank you, I'd like to say, to the organisers who dedicated time and energy to making this training possible. And also to you as attendees for committing 1 hour of your time to learn, engage, and be part of the solution to end the unfair division of labour. Your participation does make a difference, and you are amazing. We'll be here a little while longer. What time is it now? Yeah, be here a little while longer, so feel free to stay and chat with us. And thank you for being part of this movement. That's everything.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.